Hey, naked Vikings fins, NVS fins. I was talking to Jason Bennett yesterday about the importance of fins and how it makes a difference to your board and how it's going to perform. So I know David, you and I both have, and we're lucky enough to have an assortment of wonderful NVS fins.
Absolutely, yeah. They've just released six, I think, new collaborations. Couple with Josh Hall, couple with um, Album surfboards. I know a set with Victor Bernardo for a board model that he does with Album surfboards. The Josh Hall stuff is brand new. I don't know that they've ever done collabs with Josh Hall before, but really always got new stuff in the works. And part of the benefit of that as the surfboard shaper, if you are a surfboard shaper listening, is there's no minimum order quantities. So if you have a certain fin template and design that you've been wanting to implement for a new surfboard, you don't have to buy, 300 pairs or sets of fins. You can kind of just get one-offs to sample and try. So it's an incredible two-man operation, and you have direct access, whether you're a shaper or a customer. You can just call them up and get direct advice from the manufacturers themselves. So it's a pretty incredible
That's
resource.
amazing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Surf NVS, Naked Viking fins. And then also Real Water Sports is, of course, our retail partner. And the surfboard, the Better Every Day. I don't know if you've been checking that out, the new Channel Islands model, part of their Everyday series, but the Better Every Day looks incredible to me. And they've got a full range of those available at Real Water Sports right now.
Yeah, I took one of the better everyday models to Indo two times. And so for sort of just, like to me, that model is about just what you're going to ride every day. It's 3 to 4 feet, maybe it's 5 to 6 feet. You need something that you can count on. To me, it's like reliability, that design. You know what I mean? It's like a really comfortable pair of shoes that you put on and you're like, yeah, these are the ones I'm wearing today, every day.
And then it becomes, yeah, your everyday choice. And then, of course, Real Water Sports has the real deal. So save 15% on wetsuits, surfboard accessories, including fins, traction leashes, board bags, with any surfboard purchase. No discount code needed. Just put a surfboard in your cart, and then when you add those accessories in, it'll automatically give you the 15% at checkout. So that is at realwatersports.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy. What's up, bro? Yeah. Anyway, it is Spit. It is the Surf Podcast with Scott Bass and David Lee Scales. Let's see, it's March 12th, David. It's a rainy, cold day here in Southern California. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Scott Bass. Great to see you.
Yeah, good to be seen, as they say. That's what the Irish say.
Good to be seen.
Well, it's better to be seen than to be viewed.
Better than the alternative, I suppose.
Think about it.
We have big news to kick off the show with.
Oh my.
We've got a Patreon that we are setting up with our very first Patreon bonus episode airing later today.
Right on. Patreon bonus episode. Tune in if you can.
This is Scott's idea from 10 years ago, by the way, that we're finally implementing now. We realized a long time ago that we wanted to have uh, be independent, let's say. Advertising is great, but it's kind of, comes and goes. It's inconsistent. But if we could just be independent and be funded by our listeners, that would allow us just to cater to whatever content they want, essentially. And so we set up a subscription platform rather than doing Patreon a long time ago, and that is still existent. And we will still put all the Patreon content on that platform as well. So if you're already set up and supporting there, you'll still have access to everything that we're putting on Patreon. But Patreon is just a little bit more user-friendly platform. It's kind of what everybody is already familiar with and used to using. And so a lot of people already have Patreon accounts. You can just add us to whatever else you're supporting on there. But we're going to be doing a bonus episode. So what you get on Patreon for $5 or $10 a month is four new bonus episodes that are about 30 minutes long. So Spit's 60 minutes. We'll do one extra bonus episode per week. That's a 30-minute show. We'll have direct access. So chat is available on there if you want to connect with us. We're going to be leaning into a lot of listener incorporating listeners into that show, actually. So today we've got somebody joining us who needs quiver help for an upcoming Fiji trip. So he's going to join us on the show, and we will help guide him through that. But we really feel like this has always been a listener produced largely show with direction from them or who we should interview or whatever. And so this is one step further in that direction, making it a community show.
That's great. I'm excited about that. And we want to bring you guys into the fold more. And this is your opportunity for David and I to have a little bit more personal touch.
Exactly. Spit Pod is where you find it. So go to Patreon, patreon.com/spitpod, and you could sign up. $5 a month gives you the audio version of the bonus show, and then $10 a month gives you the video version of the show. And we're excited to do the work and excited to connect with listeners and deepen the integration into the community, or the community into the show, I should say.
Yeah, patreon.com/spitpod. Go there and get a little deeper dive into what's going on here at the Spit Podcast. Well, David, we've got a bit of a show here. I've got a Who Said That. We have the Portugal event, which is kicking off in a few days, which is kind of interesting, and we'll get into that. There might be a need for a survival pick. I'm pretty sure I'm still in the survival thing. And what if I told you that the final five was this, August or September when it occurs is going to be really kind of interesting.
I'm
Anyway,
curious.
I also have a have you ever suggestion.
Perfect. Am I frozen on your screen?
Yes, you are.
I could see you and hear you. Let me switch cameras and switch back, see if that fixes it.
Yeah. Look at you. What's up with that new background? What happened to our video monitor that was playing incredible content?
Oh,
for-
I will bring that back. I just feel like I could never quite get the contrast right, so I want to dial it in beforehand. Let me unplug my camera. I will be right back.
Sure.
Sorry
Well,
about this.
no, you're doing good. You know what? Look, in the meantime, people can look behind me and see that right there is a poster called 150 Surfboards. It's an incredible poster. It gives you a historical perspective of the timeline of our culture, which is completely based in surfboards.
I love it. All right. Looks like I'm back. Okay, let's roll.
You got to have the standard. Everybody has their bookshelf. That's like a go-to. David, I don't see your bookshelf anywhere.
It's being delivered today, believe it or not,
Oh,
from
really?
Amazon. Yeah, I've got to build it. I'm still working on set design. Every week we do this, and I look at it after the fact. And I'm like, okay, lighting needs to change, a couple of arrangement thing needs to change. So I've got things in
Really,
mind.
this is kind of a Wizard of Oz vibe, like what's behind the curtain type
That's
thing.
what, see, I want you to be curious. That's the whole point.
Very curious. Um, all right, what was the last book you read?
Dude, I'm not really reading that much right now. I think I might have even told you about it. It was the Anthony Bourdain biography, memoir, Kitchen Confidential.
Oh, cool. That
Yeah.
sounds cool. All right.
And the one I read before that was I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which was turned into just a novel, but it was turned into a Netflix film. Um, and that was fascinating, really psychological
Yeah.
thriller, let's say.
Look, there's so many great books out there. I urge each and every listener, send us what you're reading. I'd like to know.
Hey, we should do a book club on the bonus show.
I mean, I love reading. Now, I read about 4 paragraphs a night before I just like fall asleep into my book.
Yeah.
So I'm a slow reader, but man, I've gotten to a place where like Netflix, all these shows are somewhat formulaic. They're starting to get kind of, you know, I just want something more thought-provoking, and books give me that, and books will give all of us that. And so let's be a literate podcast.
Well, there aren't a lot of other mediums that I could say have no downside to them. There are only upside. Like some Netflix shows do have value to them and maybe are intellectually stimulating and you learn things, but not all of them are. And a lot of them are just a waste of your time. Scrolling your phone can be a total waste of time. There's not a book that you can read that is a waste of time.
Well, that's a big statement. I will say this, that if you come across a book that you don't like, you just throw it away and pick up a new one. There are so many great ones out there, you know. I just had a book called Nuclear War: A Scenario, which is basically like if North Korea sends a missile our way, which could happen right now as we're speaking, how long does it take? What is it? What are the policies and procedures and protocols? And how long do we have? Do we retaliate? Do we not retaliate? What's the time frame like? And this book basically takes you through, okay, you're 2 minutes in, the system has acknowledged that there's an intercontinental ballistic missile in flight towards us. And it takes you through every minute and how it goes down and who meets with who and who makes decisions and how we all, it was crazy, but it was kind of a crappy book. So I threw it away. I threw it to the side. I actually skimmed through it. I probably read half of it and then just went, okay,
When was that book published?
this year.
Okay. Because it's probably already outdated. A lot of those people that you're talking about in that system have already been let go of their jobs.
Oh no, it wasn't like this is the person. It was more like, the Secretary of Defense. At this point, the president has to do that. It wasn't individual
It was just
people. It
policy.
was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
policy. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty
All right.
fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, where do
Look,
we begin?
let's begin with who said that. I'm ready to stump you and the listeners. Put on your thinking caps. I've got a short sentence from somebody, and then I've got four individuals, and you're going to guess which one of these individuals said that. So here we go. And I quote, I shape surfboards. I'm not an intellectual. I'm not the extreme conversationalist. I fade out after a while. I'm more of an artistic person. I like creating things. I get into some reading now and then. David, who said that? Was it one, Skip Fry, two, Michael Peterson, three, Lance Carson, or four, Bing Copeland?
I got to go Bing on that one.
Bing, you think Bing is
My two choices would be Bing or Skip, but I'm going to go Bing.
yeah, the key is who's not an extreme So anyway, the answer is you're wrong on both charges. The person who said that was Michael Peterson. Michael
Interesting.
Peterson. I shape surfboards. I'm not an intellectual. I'm not an extreme conversationalist. I fade out. I'm more of an artistic person. I like creating things. Michael Peterson. And of course, as you may know, David, we've got a triple wing pintail Michael Peterson surfboard shaped by Michael Peterson, one of the 48 curated lots on the auction block this spring during the California Gold Surf Auction, which takes place April 5th through April 19th. David, most boards are no reserve. We'll be selling them no matter what. This is surely a buyer's market right now. Cash is king. A wonderful opportunity abounds. So looking forward to the auction. We've got some really cool boards, and boy, a Michael Peterson hand-shaped triple string pintail. It's kind of got a fangy vibe to it, and it's got the classic Michael Peterson surfboards logo. It's a really cool board.
Have you've been doing the auction thing for quite some time now. Have you ever had a board come through twice?
Oh yeah, that happens for sure. We try to
I,
hold off on it for a while, but it's kind of good for the market actually when a board shows up every 5 years or so.
yeah, because I was just wondering, you got to run out of classic collectibles at a certain point. There's a finite number of surfboards, and especially from a certain, like MP only made so many boards, obviously. And
Yeah.
so I guess Skip's still making them, but there are just kind of a finite number of collectible boards anyway. So I would think that you would dry up your sources at a certain point.
Yeah, like I said, what we don't do is turn them over, every year, but it's good to see a board come through the auction after 5 or 10 years, because it's like I said, it's good for the market. You mentioned Skip Fry. I ran into Skip the other day, and of note, I had a Lance Carson surfboard under my arms. So I had a beautiful 1966 Lance Carson triple string pintail, like just a classic Lance Carson that will be in the auction. And I ran into Skip, and it was cool because you could see he lit up when he saw the board, and he went over it and put his hands all over it and checked it out and stuff. And it was pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, the other great thing about what I was stating about kind of the finite supply is that if you did buy a board at auction and then later decide to sell it, prices go up. I mean, when you have a finite supply of something, prices generally go up. So,
Yeah, I mean, the way that the economy, everyone's kind of on pins and needles. It's a great time to buy hard assets, like if you can get out of the stock market, or if you did already, now it probably wouldn't be a good time to sell. But if you're sitting on cash, this is a great opportunity to buy hard assets, whatever it is, gold or art or surfboards. This is the time when those things have value. So it could be a great buying market.
sounds like that starts while we're in El Salvador too.
It does. That's right. El Salvador.
Is that
What are
going to
we
distract
doing?
you?
I mean, I'll be doing work while I'm there for sure. I'll be busy, but I'll certainly have an opportunity to go surfing. And I'm still stuck on the Stu Kenson twins, or the 6'6" is what I believe I'm bringing. By the way, the spreadsheet that you made is wonderful, because I'm really getting a kick out of. I think it says one of the columns is like Scott's favorite saint. What is your favorite Scott-ism or something like
Yeah,
that?
Scott Bassisms, something
And
along this.
oh, it was great. Our friend Mitch put, his favorite thing is when I step on you, or when I step on other people. The phrase step on means when you talk over somebody in the broadcast world. And he's like, oh, I thought that was so funny.
So we'll just reveal it to the listeners right now. Favorite Scott-isms, which by the way, I did not create that column. This was a copy and pasted spreadsheet from last year when we did this trip. And another listener on last year's trip created that column, favorite Scott-isms, and filled it out on their own. Held to the yes is your favorite one of yourself. Mitch is talking over his guests. Somebody else said buttery is the favorite term that you use when talking about wetsuits. Somebody else said, well, we've said a lot. Somebody else said, I could be wrong.
That
Surfers are,
that one is really good.
well, that's a deep cut because like surfers are the worst is an obvious tagline, but I could be wrong is just something that you incorporate into a lot of what you say, which gives you a free pass to then say something wrong.
Exactly. It's the ultimate caveat.
Yeah, freaking guy, of course, is in there. Adios and aloha is in there. So lots of great ones.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to meeting everybody. I know Mitch, no, but I don't think I know anyone else on the trip.
Well, Will Stonecipher was on last year's trip. He was the regular footer who was
Oh
ripping
yeah.
wearing the tights.
Our Will's gone? Cool.
Will's coming back.
Stoked. Will, underspoken, understated shredder. He might have won the event last year. Like, if you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing in the water.
Well, so he's Santa Barbara guy, and he's got reminiscent of Curran style, dare I say, but exactly underspoken in that way too, which is a Santa Barbara thing, I feel. Um,
I think
but
he's
he,
got Willie Morris power.
there you go. So the other thing is Scott's first guy out every morning. Just let it be known. So in the dark, Bass is already out. You get up and you get coffee, and the sun's not even up yet, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm the first person up. And then you notice somebody on the point catching a wave, and you're like, oh, Scott's been out already for 10 minutes. Will is on the opposite program. Will waits until Scott and everybody else comes in, and then he cruises out. And you're like, oh, it's kind of windy. It's not that good. I don't know. Will should have got up earlier. And then you check the footage later in the day, and you're like, oh no, Will dominated the day without us even noticing.
Yeah, that's a good move, the gentleman's hour move, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Exactly. And he was also the one who really pioneered the Hydra tights. So we were wearing the Florence um, ultraviolet hooded rash guard. That is like now the uniform anywhere near the equator. So that's what we all had. But he had the pants version, and everybody kind of made fun of him. Everybody's pointing like, "Hey man, why are you wearing tights?" He's like, "Hey, I gotta protect myself against skin cancer. It is what it is." And then he would rip, so everybody shut up. Well, then later, a few months ago, Florence introduced the Hydrotite, which is exactly what he was wearing at that time. So he was an early adopter.
That's cool. I might have to adopt myself. That sounds like a good move. I actually am putting that Effudex cream on my face right now. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
It's the stuff the dermatologists give you to kind of like get on your skin cancer early, and you put it on for like 3 weeks straight, and it basically does it like a chemical peel on your face, but it really dries out your skin and makes it super uncomfortable. And so I'm in the middle of that right now.
So it's not like just when you're going in the sun, like sunblock. It's something that it's a treatment, preventative treatment that you do.
Yeah, you put it on twice a day for 3 weeks, and it basically, like I said, it's a peel basically. Eventually, like in about a week, my face will be all crackly and dried out, and it just takes off, one of the top layers of your epidermis, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Interesting. I'm
yeah.
not aware. All right. Well, I've got follow up from last week, or did you have a segment you want to open with?
I think I already opened with a great segment called "Who Said That?" and we stumped you.
That's right. Thank you for the reminder. Well,
Yeah.
I've got follow up from last week. Hello, David and Scott. I listened with interest to your ideas about the top surfers competing at short notice as swells arise. My question is this: using the recent cyclone hitting the Australian East Coast as an example, would you deny a local who has waited their whole life for this swell in what would potentially be the wave of his or her life? Would you have an entire break like Kira cordoned off for just two surfers, even if it was John versus Gabe? I know you said just for 2 hours, but that could be the best window for the whole period. If the answer is yes, are you really core? I'm being a bit facetious, but it is something to ponder. Cheers, lad. Love your work. Cheers, lads. Love your work.
Well, he brings up a great point. If it was at Kira, I think what we would do is just have them sit on that one end section. But frankly, it shouldn't be Kira. Like if it's Hurricane Alfred, you just can't do that at Kira.
Well,
But my
the
point is,
question still applies. No matter where you go, there are locals at that spot who this is
yeah,
the day of their life and they've been waiting for it. And
yeah,
so, how do you feel more? This is an ethical question.
it is.
And
It's
what's
a
your
good
answer?
Um, I'm speechless. Uh, I feel like if there's John, and Gabe are two of the best surfers in the world for 2 hours at a spot, I feel like we should be able to relinquish because what we're not saying you can't surf this spot. You're gonna get your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm not taking the spot away for the whole day. So that's my answer. The answer is yeah, for 2 hours you're out.
Okay. Well,
But for 10 hours you're in.
I'm gonna take the opposite approach, which is um, it's a free for all. Like we're bringing John and Gabe to the best waves on the best swell, and they're gonna battle it out. But to be perfectly honest, if some local scores the wave of the day, he can win the 100K as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Or
No, no,
maybe
no.
he's
This is
maybe
about crowning a world champion, though.
okay, so maybe he's not in the contest, but guess what?
Right.
That's bragging rights for the rest of your life.
Maybe we put aside a little bit of, so you don't want to do that because then you get everyone frothy. Like, oh, I can go
That's
out there
true.
and hunt on and Gabe. So my sense is okay, let's say you send him out and there is a local hero that gets the wave of the day. All right, killer. Believe me, he's going to get his. Stab will report on it. Everyone will be excited for him. And there he goes. He has his moment in the sun. But I sense that not at Kira, but John, and Gabe, they're going to get their waves. And I agree with you. Maybe you don't clear it out. Maybe you just send them out there for 2 hours. And the thing is, you know, are these guys going to drop in on a local hero because they're in a contest? And it would be my hope that they don't.
Yeah,
And
that
my gut feeling is that John wouldn't, but that Gabe might.
and that's his own cross to bear. You know what I mean? Like this is not only are you trying to be the best surfer and win a world championship, but you also have a ton of fans that you're trying not to break their hearts or lose them as fans. And so the surfer, the individual surfer is navigating all of that. Is it worth it?
To be the world champion and get
And
more than $100,000.
then be vilified by the entire internet. This
Yeah,
is
and
all a lot
lose
more.
followers.
This is all a lot more dramatic and interesting to me than finals day at Lowers. To be honest, like all of the drama is
It is.
built into this.
It absolutely is. Speaking of this, I do want to share something that I got from Jason Murray. So Jason's the guy that produced the natural selection, the Travis Rice thing that we watched out there. in the Marshall Islands, that area. And he wanted to let us know that thanks for the positive coverage of natural selection surf and constructive feedback. Oh, by the way, there was a pretty solid purse. So natural selection had a solid purse.
Why not report? Why didn't he tell you the number?
He said, I guess that you're heard about that already. And I, I still don't know. I don't recall it being like front and center in the messaging that they were giving, or I'd be like, I wouldn't even have brought it up. I would have been like, yeah.
It wasn't even left or right of center. Like I was actually paying attention and I never saw any of it.
Well, there was a purse,
Okay.
and I'm not
Well,
sure,
good,
but I
good,
would certainly find out.
good to know. Well, look, as the contest designers for this format that you're talking about, I'm going with don't clear the lineup. John, and Gabe have to battle it out with everybody else. I mean, we all know the cream rises to the top, especially on a swell like that at Cura. So they're going to get their waves out there, and I'd kind of rather see it's a more accurate reflection of a real free surf, anyways, and I think it can all work itself out.
Real quick, who won natural selection? Quickly.
Soli Bailey and Mila Coca Brown.
Okay. I'm glad you brought it. It's funny because when I was thinking about it, all I was thinking about was Alan Cleland. I'm like, God, Alan Cleland absolutely killed it. And then I realized that's not who won it.
He killed one session.
Yeah, he did. That was so fun. Natural selection is great. And yeah, I'm a big fan. Go ahead.
Well, I was just so talking about this, I guess, leads us to Surfline and NOAA. This is a story that's worth reporting on, and that is over 600 people have been fired at NOAA. Have you been tracking this?
I have slightly, and it's certainly in my wheelhouse to do more research. I wanted to reach out to Mark Sponsler and get his insight on it because he's sort of my go-to surf forecaster guy, and I haven't done that yet. But now would be the time for one of us to reach out to Mark and get his insight on what's happening at NOAA. But what have you learned? Because it sounds like you've done some good research here.
I'm just going to read to you from an article that I read and provide some facts and details. But basically, widespread firings and buyouts at the U.S. is key federal weather agencies. The National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration are expected to have major impacts on Americans and the economy. The cuts could compromise important functions, places and place lives at risk. Current and former officials say the National Weather Service employees, the union representing 4,000 workers, argued the changes could leave some offices unable to track weather hazards around the clock. Private sector forecasters, this is where it might matter to surfing, meteorologists and researchers around the world rely on these agencies' weather and climate data. So these kind of key agencies are providing data that then Surfline and all the other surf forecasting websites pull from. They do their own modeling as well, but they still are relying on these data. So, quote, the cutbacks at NOAA's tsunami warning centers in Hawaii and Alaska, according to the person familiar with those offices. Even before those layoffs, scientists at those centers logged overtime hours to ensure the public is apprised of tsunami threats. Technicians who repair radar systems across the country lost their jobs, as did several from a team who handle larger repair projects at the Weather Service's National Reconditioning Center in Missouri. And said Jaron Kierska, who was fired Thursday after leaving the private sector to join the center as a director in September. Kierska said, we were barely band-aided together as it was, and now we just terminated all of the probationary people as well. We are screwed, end of quote. So I guess they were already running on a pretty lean staff coming into this administration and working overtime, like you said, band-aided together. And then this 600 firing from NOAA, basically he's like, I don't know how it's going to operate at this point without these people. These are key people doing repairs on the actual equipment itself and, of course, tracking threats like tsunamis and things like that. So what does this mean for you in surf forecasting?
Well, I guess more will be revealed. It's certainly not a good thing for our ability to track constantly. You know, there's going to be, I just can't do a deep analysis on this right now because like I said, I need to reach out to Mark, people that are really in the know, because I'm just a, you know, an armchair quarterback type forecaster. I'm just gleaning information from all the experts. And so, like I said, more will be revealed, but it can't be a good thing, you know? It doesn't
Well,
seem like we're leading, it seems like scientifically we would want as Americans to lead, to be the leaders, you know? And it seems like we're
so
not trying to lead, we're trying to, I don't know,
I guess I don't really care about surf forecasting
not about
that
leading, it's all
much.
about greeting.
Right. Surf
Leading or
forecast
greed.
surf forecasting isn't my primary concern here. Like having those
Yeah.
tsunami warnings,
Yeah.
uh, tornado warnings, hurricane warnings, things like that, I think are very, very valuable and essential, kind of. Um, so that is really where my concern is. If we can't forecast the surf or what it's going to be like in El Salvador for us next month, I'm fine with that. No big deal. But my other thought is we criticize the WSL or contest structures to the point that we're like, cut the whole thing down, like
I
throw it
know.
out
We have full
because
Doge. We're like Doge guys when it
exactly.
comes to the WSL.
So that's the analogy that I'm drawing is we want to break it down because we see all of the flaws, but we have in mind a better version. So my thought here is there a plan in place? Was somebody so knowledgeable about NOAA and thought to themselves, it's bloated and it's all bureaucratic and we need to just start from scratch. So let's make all the cuts and we will rebuild from scratch under this more, efficient, better version. And if that's where we're going, okay, cool. I have not heard that plan. I have not seen that plan. It seems like more the idea is let's just cut everything because we're trying to reduce expenses. But who cares about whether we can track the next tsunami or not? That's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, and I think if any historical, if we can use history as our guide here, recent history, that is. I mean, they cut all of the people that track our nuclear weaponry. So they didn't have a plan for the probably the most important job for the safety of our world. They just cut it.
Right.
And so I don't think they have a plan for Noah.
Well, I agree
If
with
they
you.
didn't have a plan for people to track our nuclear weapons, they don't have a plan for Noah.
And so that is how I feel too. I don't have faith or optimism that there is a plan in place. And the other thing that I realize is as much as we criticize the WSL and design what you designed last week, we have no knowledge or know-how how to build that thing. We can fantasize about it all we want and talk about it on a podcast, but
Yeah.
actually building it is a totally different skill set that requires a lot of obviously time and know-how. So to rebuild the weapons tracking that you're talking about and NOAA would probably take a decade and a ton of resources. Whatever you're saving in costs from the cuts is not enough to build a brand new version of it, a better version of it, and we don't have enough time to do it in the while there's actual tsunamis coming or hurricanes coming or any like. So that leaves me feeling very pessimistic and nervous about what the next period of time looks like.
This would be a great time to drop I could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong, but yeah, look, it's a good time and we'll see what happens. But you're right. Regarding the WSL, we sort of play armchair quarterback here and we have our vision of what it could be. But certainly, I haven't combed through the spreadsheet, but I also am somebody that runs operations and does logistics. And on some level, I think you do at some point, you need to comb through the budget. That's really what every single business starts with a budget. And so if you had the ability to look at the WSL's budget and then comb through it and go, okay, look, with a fine tooth comb and go, okay, here's where this does make sense. Like, yes, we actually could put two people in the water with four cameramen and a broadcaster and judges offsite. And it's going to be the cost is going to be X, and marketing is now going to be X. And, you know, so that's really what it comes down to. And until you get access to those budgets, you and I just sit here and play armchair quarterback, which is really kind of what we're doing. It's fun. Surfing is fun. Talking about surfing is fun. The WSL, frankly, is fun. And pro surfing is fun. And I think it's a good thing to crown a champion. And I
Yeah.
just, we could do a better job of it because The real champion, David, are the waves. When the waves are
Yes.
good, we're watching, no matter what.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think you um all those criticisms that we've talked about are because the WSL is allocating resources and energies towards things that we feel like are not aligned with good surfers and good waves. And
Yeah.
that's where the criticisms all stem from. When we see them spending money on doing things that are just, I don't know, modeled after, I don't know what, some other league that, and then the surfers are surfing marginal surf at
Yeah.
beach breaks around the world, going from one mediocre beach break to another. That's where the criticism is all stemming from.
Yeah, like the greatest surfers in the world in mediocre waves. That doesn't sound like a very good selling point. How about the greatest surfers in the world in the greatest waves in the world? Okay, what
Yeah.
does that require? Well, it requires two of them. You get two of them. So let's take the top two and we'll just, yeah, let
Yeah.
people.
So the other story that this leads to, we did not cover about a month ago, which is SURFLINE cutting 80 staffers, mostly editorial staff. I've heard other people in, yeah, I've heard other people mentioning that a lot of the modeling is transitioning to AI anyways. So like some of the meteorologists that work there are going to be, if not already, but downsized as well. Um, and so I wonder how much of a threat they feel now if they've gotten away from editorial and news and that sort of stuff and are focusing more just on cams and forecasting, but now the forecasting leg gets cut out from under them. I wonder how this jeopardizes or affects their business potentially.
Yeah, it's interesting because from a selfish sort of surfers are the worst standpoint, um, the elimination of people at NOAA and the elimination of people at Surfline could be viewed as a good thing. Like, hey, guess what? We're back to the 70s where nobody knew when the swells were going to hit. And the AI models are way off, at least that's been what I've noticed.
Yeah.
What it seems to be is like 7 days out and further is just a crapshoot. The AI model's like, I don't know, it could be 8 to 12, and you're like, really? And then when it gets down to 3 to 4 days before, it's like, yeah, it's going to be 2 to 4. You know what I mean? Which is what I've noticed is that way out, the models are off. And I think before way out, the models required some nuance from the forecasters to kind of go, look, we know what's going on here. And that's simply the model going really hot on us. And what we do know is actually the fetch is going to be like this and it's going to produce waves like that. And so I think we're missing that. But like I said, from sort of a selfish standpoint, this offers the opportunity to score moments. And actually, yesterday and today were moments like that in Southern California. I knew that the southeast wind could have more of an easterly component because it was such a cold, we have such cold storms rolling through that when it's cold inland, that south wind that's normally real southerly will turn easterly and have an offshore component to it. And sure enough, that happened yesterday and it's happening right now. There's a storm blowing through here. It's raining. Most people are like, no way. But it's so cold that we've got a really pretty strong easterly component to the wind, which I used to live for these moments, like when I was in my
Yeah.
40s and through my 50s, just a couple of years ago, I would be like, I would have canceled our show and I'd be like, you know what, this is one of those moments where people think it's blown out, but it's actually groomed and offshore. And, and so, yeah, selfishly, could be a good thing.
Totally agree. Yeah, I'm on board with that aspect of it. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, like, I don't really care about surf forecasts. Like that isn't the threat here for me. This is a
Right.
larger scale threat.
Right.
But as it relates to the Surfline story of letting people go, Nick Carroll was on staff there as part of, I think, the head of the editorial, and he was let go. And he had a photographer friend that he worked with there named Hannah Anderson. And so, one thing that they've done in the downtime is they've started a podcast. So, if you're interested, you're obviously into podcasts. If you're listening to this, go check out Nick Carroll and Hannah Anderson's podcast. It's called We Shouldn't Be Friends. And totally different, very fun. It's Australian in its kind of sensibility and totally different than Scott and I and what we talk about. But he's such a great guy and great communicator in history and core surfer, all that sort of stuff. And Hannah's a great counterpart as a young female photographer. So go check it out. We shouldn't
That
be
sounds
friends.
great. I'm going to check it out. We should be
Yeah.
friends. All right.
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. I'm stoked for Nick and Hannah, and you're right. Nick's a friend of mine, and he does great work.
He's the greatest. Yeah.
He's fun. All
Yeah.
right. David, my survival pick. Are you ready? So
Oh,
WSL event's coming up, Portugal event. It's in 3 days. By the way, speaking of swell forecasts, according to SURFLINE, it's going to be 0 to 1 foot from today all the way through the 27th of March. 0 to 1 foot and poor. Very poor, very poor, very poor, 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 very poor, very poor, very poor, very poor. It's not looking good. Now, maybe this is just a byproduct of the AI,
yeah.
but what I'm reading is it's poor. So what does that tell us as what kind of insight does that give us as we try to pick a survival? This is one of those events where I think the strategy is you go for somebody you can count on to get sevens in every single, and get through heats. Who's a guy that can get through heats? I know you know who I'm thinking of because I said the magic word, he gets sevens. When I say he gets sevens, who do you think of?
Kanoa.
Yes, Kanoa gets sevens. So I think Kanoa is a safe pick. You're looking for safety here.
I already burned him at pipe.
Did you survive?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I used him at pipe. I mean, and he got through. So it was a good pick at pipe. But I can't use him now, is my point.
But you do agree that you've
I
kind of got
agree.
to be looking for somebody that's stable competitively, you
I've
know?
seen I've seen Kanoa surf literally thousands of waves in Huntington that are exactly what it sounds like the forecast is like in Portugal. And so, yes, he would be a safe pick.
Also, at this point, you got to be thinking small and light.
Yeah.
Kanoa is not necessarily small. He's kind of a big guy, isn't he? Like
And I
five.
mean, he's still light. I'd say he's
Yeah,
like 160 at the most.
yeah, yeah,
So I have a question for you. Go
yeah,
with Cano. I think that's a great pick.
yeah.
My question is Griffin Colapinto is my original primary pick going into this season for Portugal, but he's won this event I think 2 times before, which is why I had him. But that also sets it up for like, can you win 3 times in a row? And he's also having a kind of marginal season. So is this when he surges? And again, just statistically, people aren't likely to win an event 3 times. And so is this the off event? Is this the one time where he does poorly in Portugal, or is he a good pick?
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, right? Because he seems to have gone through this really great, by the way, I think it's a wonderful, he seems to personally be way more in touch with sort of a Zen-like spiritual quality and like he's had like a broader, grander view of life. And and in so doing, perhaps has lost and this is a reach, I could be wrong, but has he lost some competitive spice? Is he just, do you know what I mean? Like he's put out
Yeah.
some stuff where he's really, taking like I say, sort of a global viewpoint of life and a much more mature look at things, quite frankly. But is it at the stake, at the cost of being a competitive animal?
So it's interesting because those pursuits for him, I think, were in pursuit of greatness athletically and competitively. But you're right. If you look at the stats of this year, he has not achieved what he set out to do. But I also think if you look at his surfing this year, his surfing has been the best it's ever been. And it's just, I think those losses are just a reflection of the statistical guarantee that you're going to have some losses. Even if you're the best surfer on tour any given year, you're going to have losses due to the waves and forecasting and things outside of your control. And so I think he needs to keep his chin up and keep applying what he's doing, and he will net the results that he's looking for. Whether it happens in Portugal or not, I'm not willing to bet money on.
And ninth place at Abu Dhabi and a 17th place at Pipeline. The Pipeline one is surprising.
Yeah, totally. He surfed great. So I forget he lost to, I want to say Joel Vaughn, and he surfed great.
Yeah.
and it was just Joel Vaughn got the wave at the last minute that he needed. And there's nothing you can do about that. You shouldn't feel bad about it. I can't remember Abu Dhabi because I didn't watch it. I mean, I looked at
Ninth
the,
place feels about right. You'd almost think he might do a little better at
yeah,
Abu Dhabi, quite frankly, but a ninth place feels right. So you're right. These two events, they're more, um,
anomaly,
yeah, anomaly. Is there a word anomalous?
maybe.
I think maybe I need a conviction here. I think these events, these results are anomalous. Are you
Let me
doing
look it
it
up.
correctly? Anomalous. If it's not a word, that would be fitting, and this might be your new favorite phrase.
Anomalous is an adjective and it is deviating from what is standard, normal, or expected.
Yeah, these two results are anomalous for Griffin. I think you are correct in your assessment that we could see a run and it wouldn't surprise anybody. If there was 5 events where he's ninth or worse, then we've got some issues.
Yeah. So I think Griff,
Actually,
layer,
even one more event. I think if he doesn't have a result here, we've got to be considered. We got to be thinking about something here. Changes.
I think Griff, keep your chin up, stick to the game plan. And I think he can look, he's won this event in good conditions and bad conditions, actually. I remember I think the first year that he won, it was abysmal. And so this might be a similar year to that. But I'm going to hedge a little bit, and I think I'm going to run with Felipe Toledo.
That's a good call. That's another great call. I was kind of right there with you with Philippe. Let me ask you this. If I told you it's August 2025, we have our final 5. It's Italo Ferreira, Leonardo Fioravanti, Ian Govea, Felipe Toledo, and Miguel Pupo. What would you say?
I would not be thrilled. I feel like
Wow.
those are not the top 5 surfers in the world in 2025, not even by a 20% margin. Those aren't the top 5.
Wow. 20% margin, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I do believe. And so I would be totally disappointed in the system if that's what spit out the top 5 at the end. That's basically
Tell me
the
there's
A.
15 surfers that are better than the 5 that I mentioned on the world tour.
Yeah, totally.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, Italo, he'd be in that conversation. I mean, there's not 15 better than Italo,
Right.
but 15
Leonardo,
bet
Ian Govea, Felipe Toledo, Miguel Pupo.
15 better than Ian Govea, Miguel Pupo, and Leonardo for sure.
By the way, Miguel Pupo's been on tour forever, it seems like.
He
Am I,
just got back on. He just re-qualified or got in this year. So
I mean,
he's
how
been
old is
bumped
he?
up
He's
before.
got to be like 34, I sense. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, for sure. For sure in his mid 30s. Yeah, that'd be a disappointing. I mean, look, that's a event that Miguel could actually win. He could win a world title. If he's in the top 5 going into Cloudbreak, I
yeah,
feel like he could it's one venue that maybe he could beat Italo at.
he's 33 years old. I'd actually be kind of stoked on Miguel Pupo winning the world title. Of the 5 guys I mentioned, he's the one where I'm like, that would be kind of cool. It'd be a cool story, you know?
If we're living in this fantasy land of where those are the 5 guys that get spit out of the end of the year, then
Yeah.
absolutely give it to like let him win. I would
You
I
think
would
that's
root
a
for him to
fantasy
win.
land? Do you think I just came up with 5? Ian Gouveia is in ninth place.
I
Miguel
don't think
Pupo's in third. Italo's in first. Leonardo's in fifth. And Felipe's in 10th.
I'm not saying you created the fantasy. I'm saying the system that is operating right now
Right.
is making this a reality when it is that far removed from
Yeah.
the who are the actual 5 best surfers in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But on tour, who are the 5 best on tour?
yeah, even that, even that. There's not 15 on tour that are better, but even that scenario, I
Yeah.
mean, Jordy. Well, I guess this season with John out and Gabe out, that makes it a little bit more complicated. But certainly, Jordy, Jack, Ethan, Griffin,
Griffin, Yago.
Yago. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, that's a possibility. We could be staring that down. Look, there's a lot of events left. We're only two events in. I guess there's only what, 7 or 8 events left? 7 events, maybe.
yeah. Um, I've got a question I wanted to ask you, an existential question.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a bathroom break before we do?
I don't call it a bathroom break. Okay.
You want to go
What's
feed the dog?
happening? Yeah, the dog is at the door and he's like whimpering right now. If you listen, there it is.
The mic's not picking it up, strangely.
You know what? We'll be right back.
Okay.
FanDuel.com/surf. When the games tip off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting and the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you miss the first few minutes of the game or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/surf to join today. That's FanDuel.com/surf for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
All right. Was the dog okay?
Oh yeah, the dog's been fed. It's happy.
Okay. Good. Okay. So my question to you, I interviewed Glenn Hening over the weekend. Do you know Glenn?
Oh yeah.
Say more.
No, you know what? He's one of the founders of the Surfrider Foundation.
Yeah, exactly. The founder, I think. I mean, really, primary figure of the founding days. So Glenn Hening, and asked him what was the impetus for Surfrider Foundation, right? Like when you started it in 1984, what was the idea? And he said, surfing was going through this boom time where there are corporations getting involved, blah, blah, blah. Tons of surfers in the water. The whole culture had changed of what was happening in the water and certainly outside of the water. And so the goal was, there was two main goals. It was to help prevent people from getting sick from surfing, obvious goal, like getting sick from ocean health and that sort of thing. There was runoff issues and whatever. The second one, though, do you have any idea what the second goal was?
To save like Stanley's or save a surf spot up in Santa Barbara or something.
No, it was to prevent surfers from getting sick from other surfers.
What?
Yeah. So it was so much of what had happened around that time that was different than when he grew up surfing was everybody hates each other now. Like in the lineup, it's become so competitive.
Oh, I thought you
And
meant is actually physically sick. Oh, you mean surfers are the worst type of thing.
surfers are the worst. This is exactly what you've been saying all along. So he was like, when I grew up, it was if you saw somebody driving down PCH with boards on the car, it was like, what's up, bro? Like, hey, how's it going? Where are you going? Can I come? And it was all that kind of camaraderie. You see somebody getting a set wave, you're applauding for them, you're excited. And things had changed so much to where it was competitive. Localism, of course, was running rampant. And that was, he felt, not only distasteful, but counter to the initial conceit of surfing. And I had never heard that in any of SURFLINE or Surfrider's, messaging or doctrine or whatever. And I think that it probably just hasn't been a part of it for a period since who knows when, but maybe since Glenn left. But then I also asked Glenn, I was like, are you immune to that? Because I wholeheartedly agree with everything you're saying. This sounds fantastic. Like everybody should enjoy the ocean, right? But the moment I paddle out, I'm side-eyeing every other person in the lineup. I'm assessing their ability level. I'm blocking them out. I'm like, okay, that guy I got to do battle with over there, so I got to block, you know, like it just comes over you, right?
Oh my God, surfers are the worst.
I
It's
want to
no
live in the world that
good.
he's talking about. His world sounds amazing, but what are your
Uh,
thoughts?
well, I'm blown away that community building was like the second pillar of the Surfrider Foundation. The other thing is, and Glenn would know more, but I believe Lance Carson was involved in the Surfrider Foundation, and a guy named Pierce Flynn. Did
I
he mention
remember Pierce. Yeah, I know Pierce.
is
He
Pierce?
did not mention Pierce, but I know Pierce.
I want to say that I believe that Pierce and Lance were involved. Now, again, I could be wrong, but
So Lance,
but more about the community. Yeah, go ahead.
he did tell me about Lance. So they reached out to Lance. Lance was the most famous surfer that they knew and they had a personal relationship with that they could bring in to draw attention to their cause. And one of the first initiatives had to do with the Malibu Lagoon. The state parks people had like basically positioned it so that it was dumping straight in and ruining the surf spot. And so they had to go and have like these meetings. And so they brought Lance with them to speak about it. And Lance did gave a phenomenal speech and did a very effective job. So Lance's answer to will you be involved in Surfrider Foundation was, as long as I don't have to go to any meetings, I'm here for it. But go ahead with what you were saying.
Well, I was like I said, community building is an interesting thing that I did not know about. And yeah, like the rest of it doesn't surprise me. You know, there was a sense that we were losing control of the way that outside influences such as the government and quite frankly, private enterprises were having an effect on the surf line, on our surf spots. So yeah.
Well, and like, the first goal, people are getting sick. So this was not happening before. Now this is happening. And Glenn had also lived in El Salvador for 5 years in the 70s and 70s, actually.
Mm.
And so he had already experienced where during the rainy season, it's all runoff and there's not sewage systems, all that sort of thing. So you cannot surf in the rainy season or else you're guaranteed to get sick. So he had already experienced some of that. So when he came back home and he started seeing how commercial development and all that kind of thing was affecting the ocean that had previously been kind of safe in a refuge, he could see the direct effect. But I was all aware of. It was just the idea of surfers getting sick of other surfers that I had never considered before, or ever considered that there would be a way to uh, ebb that cultural tide, like because it just feels innate in me for some reason. And so I asked him, I'm like, are you immune to it? And he said he remembers there was an incident in the late, like that long ago, like in the 80s or something, where he had this confrontation with somebody and he made a decision to not live that way or feel like he ever needed to confront somebody in the lineup anymore because he had gotten so many great waves in his life, during those halcyon days that this person hasn't necessarily had that. And if they think they need this set wave at Malibu, they might. Maybe they do want it or they do deserve it or whatever. And I've already had mine. So now it's time to allow to share. And so purportedly, he's been able to live with that mantra ever since. Um, I aspire to it, but I just still feel myself fighting the ego every step of the way.
Yeah, like it's a daily battle for me, man.
Exactly.
It's a daily battle so, you know, I applaud what Glenn suggested. And I think that in its infancy, when surfing started, let's say, who knows, let's say 1400, maybe earlier, right, in Polynesia
Peru.
or Peru. That's yet to be
It's up,
determined.
up for debate.
It is. Because in Peru, was it a commercial? Were they riding waves to get the fishing fleet in, or were they actually, you know, going surfing for the sake of
Recreation.
thank you? And so, anyway, at that point, were they like, "Hey, yeah, there's plenty. Everyone, come out. all be aloha and give each other waves and I think that's the case. And that's kind of what Duke is all about, right? Duke Kahanamoku, his spirit is about the spirit of aloha, which is the breath of love, aloha into your fellows. And so it's changed, right? Because of the crowd. So it's a tough one, but it's a daily battle. And I think that the principle that Glenn is suggesting is the right one.
That's how I felt as well. That was my takeaway, which was the crowds are here, whether you like it or not. And so applying my ego or indulging my ego default, what is the result of that? And it is me being less happy and me feeling like I didn't get mine or me feeling unsatisfied, unsated, no matter what. Embracing his principle, kind of have a good session every session at that point. It could be 1 foot, maybe you don't get any waves, but you're looking at, wait, at least I shared with that guy. At least they got some. At least I got in the water. So I feel like, if only for selfish reasons, actually, his principle is a better way of living.
Yeah, it's quite a paradox, but you're right. Like as long as I get my head wet, it's a success. The session was
Totally.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Community building. Who knew?
Who knew?
David, have you ever gone on a surf trip? It's 8:03. How are we doing on time for our Patreon member?
He's coming in at 8:10. So we've got 7 minutes, but honestly, he could join us here and then we'll sign off with him. So
Have you
let's
ever gone
just
on a
keep
surf
going.
trip alone? Alone. Not meeting somebody.
Right, right. No, I don't think I have.
All right. Well,
Like I've gone to Hawaii alone, but then it's like I meet up with a bunch of people there that I already know, and that's not specifically a surf trip. But like going on a solo mission somewhere, I don't think I have.
that seems like that was a thing back when I was younger. Like you didn't want to bring a crowd, you went by yourself, especially to like I used to go to Pasquale's by myself. Like I didn't want to show up with anyone. I didn't need to
Right.
drama. Not that there would be, but there was between these ears, there was going to be drama. And so it's actually kind of a lonely place, lonely way to travel, to be honest with you. It sounds real like core, so to speak, but it's kind of lonely.
I traveled to Australia by myself, but I met up with a ton of people there. Recorded podcasts, all that sort of stuff. I've traveled to Europe, but met up with a bunch of people there. Hawaii, obviously. Baja, I've done dozens of times, but never by myself. Always brought a buddy. So yeah, haven't done it. Maybe should I add that to the list?
I mean, or just or don't. I think traveling with people's one person's probably ideal.
Yeah. Well, I've got a must-see moment and, well, actually two, I guess, kind of must-see moments. Um, Barton Lynch on the Stoked Bloke podcast had Michael Ho as a guest this week. Did
Yes.
did you watch or see any of this?
No, I'm good though.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, first of all, okay, I'm gonna give you a trivia question now.
Okay.
Since you always stump me,
All
where was
right.
Michael Ho born?
Gardena, California.
You're about 400 miles off, maybe 600 miles off. San Mateo, California.
Uh,
Did you know he was born in California?
I had a sense that he was, but I didn't I had a sense that he was.
So his dad was traveling at the time, but he was born in San Mateo. But his dad was like a spearfisher, abalone diver, surfboard shaper, and he was just traveling around doing all that stuff. And so that happens to be where he was when Mike was born, and that's how he ended up in Hawaii. But um, what I wanted to start by saying was Barton Lynch deserves acknowledgement for how great of a host he is. We know how great Barton is in a lot of other ways, but he's a great host. He is energetic. He's passionate about history, but he prepares for the interview. I am so sick of like Joe. I don't even listen to Joe Rogan or watch Joe Rogan, but occasionally he forces his way into my life. And then I watch it and I'm like, he didn't research any of this. He's just like vamping every step of the way. And mostly it's the other person who's very interesting, but Joe still talks over them, interrupts with some inane comment that has nothing to do with anything. It's like that guy's interesting. Shut up, Joe. And so I appreciate a good host. And Barton, he's done his research. He has printed out notes and he's sitting there and he's like giving exact years, dates, names of people. But then once Mike starts talking, Barton backs off and lets Mike be the center of attention. And Mike, I don't think Mike's done a lot of long form interviews like this. And so he's got a tremendous history that's gold for somebody like you or I listening. So kudos to Barton and awesome to have Mike on.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned Joe Rogan's, the way he does his work, I was like, oh my God, that could be me. You're talking to. And secondly, I do believe that Mike Ho's one of those guys like that Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation thing. Like if you sat with Mike and you said, okay, Terry Fitzgerald, you know, and he could give you, 6 degrees of separation, or you could say like Don Ho, and he'd be like, and so that would be a fun thing for him to go through, an exercise to go through. But yeah, Mike Ho history through the roof, and you're right, Untapped, like that's part of the thing. You never see long form interviews of Michael Ho, very rarely.
Well, I
I
saw
can't think if the
Coco.
Surfer's Journal did one. I can't think of, you know.
Coco chimed in on the Instagram and she was like, did he even know how to speak into the microphone? Like he's never sat in front of a microphone before, Like I cannot believe that you got him to come and do this. So I highly recommend it. The Stoked Bloke, you could get it on YouTube or podcast apps. The other thought that I had while watching it was, is there any sport who has a better set of elders to look up to than our sport? I mean, these guys are in their 60s and beyond, and obviously Mike Ho, Barton himself, Tom Carroll, Jerry Lopez, Wayne Lynch, Kelly Slater in his 50. Like the list just goes on and on and on of guys who are like peak level athletes doing, living great lives ultimately. Mike Stewart, Mark Cunningham, like goes on and on.
Yeah, I think that there are other enthusiast cultures, let's say, like climbing or even like road racing. Like I think each enthusiast culture has a really deep and thorough list of elders that they all look to and that are great humans, just as these guys that you mentioned are. It's just that ours is better because we're surfers.
Well, ours is better because he's surfing pipe.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
I
That's
mean,
gnarly.
like, yeah, maybe there are still cyclists in their 60s doing it, but they're not freaking, I don't even know what the comparison would be in the cycling
There's
world.
not is there a 6-year-old climbing the face at El Cap? Maybe, I bet there is.
I
But
mean, there probably is, yeah.
just like there's a few like Michael Ho, there's a few left that are just so core and so engaged that they're involved there. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, go check that out. I was also going to just point out another potential must-see moment presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com, petroleum-free surf wax. Also available at core retailers, by the way. If you're just in your local shop, go check out if they have Treeswax, grab some bars of it because it's petroleum-free and it works great. But new Instagram account online this week, WQS Grinder 69. Have you seen this?
No, fill me in.
I am Surf Media, states the bio line. It's a cross section of some of the greatest surf media moments of the past 20 and 30 years. WQS Grinder 69. They'll post surf fights of yesteryear, um, hilarious interviews that we've forgotten about. It's all the stuff we've reported on over time, but it gets lost in the day-to-day shuffle or week-to-week shuffle. But
Yeah.
it's a great reminder. Everything that they've posted, it's like hilarious, entertaining, lots of Andy Irons clips. There's great surfing in it. It's the most entertaining account on Instagram this past week. You looking at it?
Dude, the Andy Irons and Mick Campbell fight, when I was at Surfer, do you recall we made a clip of this? Like we overdubbed words that were like from a kung fu movie, like, oh, you, I like, we did sort of that classic like kung fu movie take where like pow. We overdubbed words on it, and it was quite a. It was, this looks great. I can't wait to get involved in this. What is this Pedro Scooby before paddling out at
That dude
Nazareth?
kisses him on the lips.
Who's he kissing?
That I don't know who that guy is, but you can click over to his account. He's transitioned into a female now. So he kisses Pedro Scooby on the lips. Pedro looks a little shocked by it. And then they're like, by the way, this guy has transitioned since. So
Oh,
lots of behind the scenes fodder.
yes.
Jeff, welcome. Unmute your mic. Thank you for muting it. But we're just wrapping up Spit. But have you seen the new Instagram account, WQS Grinder 69?
I have, yeah, that's come across my feed.
Do you like it? What are your thoughts?
It's kind of silly. Yeah, it's some funny stuff every once in a while. I'm trying to figure out who it is.
I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's pretty risque regarding sort of, it might not pass muster at a university. Let's put it that way.
No, he's overstepped on a few things. Like, here's how it feels to make fun of Tyler Wright for being gay.
That was the one I
Oh,
just,
yeah, totally inappropriate and doesn't get a pass. And also the account might not last. I mean, we see stuff like this pop up every once in a while, and they come in hot and heavy with a lot of funny things, but it's like, you run out of steam pretty quick, especially if you're not monetizing it. So we'll see where it goes. But for now, it has brought up a lot of great memories from the past 20 years in surfing that I had forgotten about. And so it's nice to have everything available in one feed to see,
Yeah.
So
Sure.
anyways,
Jeff,
must-see
welcome,
moment.
man. It's good to see you, Jeff Jackson.
It's
We're glad
great to
you're
be
here.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, let's sign off the show. And then again, a reminder for listeners, we're going on Patreon. So if you want to hear more of Jeff and his quiver dilemma for Fiji, go join us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/spitpod. And yeah, I was telling Scott at the beginning of the show, Jeff, the goal with that is listener kind of focused, like integrating more community outreach, like integrating the community into the show. And so we appreciate you joining us for that and being the kickoff episode. But Scott, do you want to sign us off before we go?
Jeff, why don't you sign us off? Do you know the sign off, Jeff?
Yeah, adios and aloha.
Boom. Yeah.
Work.
Good work.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.